Hey everyone, great answers to this discussion question. I'm going to walk through it. So what we see in Mrs. Weirdry's case is probably a case of agoraphobia, and just about everyone came up with that answer for this discussion question. So before we dive into the diagnostic criteria for agoraphobia, I want to quickly review those three parts of the definition of a psychological disorder. So distress, violation of social norms, and disability and dysfunction. I saw a lot of good answers, but I saw a lot of answers that found different pieces that didn't quite exactly fit. So first, did we see distress? And the answer is clearly yes. She's clearly visibly distressed in this video and reports that she is scared of leaving her house, that she's scared to death. Do we see a violation of social norms? Does this look weird in regular North American society? And we would say yes, because she's unwilling to leave her house on a daily basis, that we would call that strange, generally speaking. Now, if it's during a pandemic, then not leaving your house might not be a violation of social norms. That might be normal behavior during a pandemic. Or if that person works from home, has their own home business and works from home, that would not just the raw fact of that they stay home does not mean that it is necessarily a violation of social norms. But here in her case, we would say that that applies. And then disability and dysfunction. I want to be clear about what we mean by disability and dysfunction. Some people gave answers like she has a hard time breathing when she steps outside. It gets a little bit harder for her to breathe when she goes further from home. Those are symptoms, but not really a sign of disability dysfunction. When we say disability dysfunction, we're talking about some external thing, some external aspect of that person's life that is affected by their symptoms. So we're not talking about the symptoms themselves, but we're talking about how those symptoms affect some real life functioning. So how does it affect your job? How does it affect your schooling? How does it affect your relationships? And what we see in her case is that her agoraphobia does cause some dysfunction in that she's not able to visit family members. So it's her disorder is now getting in the way of her relationships. She's not able to be there for important events. So that's really when it becomes a disorder, not just when you experience some symptoms, but when the symptoms prevent you from doing things that you actually want to do in real life. So that's how that applies there. So if we take a look at anxiety disorders and take a look at agoraphobia, we see quite clearly that she has marked fear or anxiety in at least two of the following situations: using transportation, being in enclosed places, such as the grocery store. We also see that being outside of the home alone is also difficult for her. So that's another key sign of agoraphobia. We also see that she actively avoids the agoraphobic situations, that the agoraphobic situations provoke fear and anxiety. It seems from the video almost always. I think this is something that we'd want to get more information about, is that the nature of her thoughts when she's in those enclosed places or outside of her home, when she's experiencing those thoughts. Is she thinking that she's anxious because she might not be able to escape? We'd like to evaluate that more clearly. We would say that the fear of anxiety the fear or anxiety is out of proportion to the actual danger of just being outside the house. And it sounds like the fear and anxiety has persisted for more than 6 months. And this is part of the three-part definition regarding dysfunction. The fear, anxiety, or avoidance causes clinically significant distress. And here they use the word distress, as well as impairment in social, occupational, or other areas of functioning. So it's causing her personal distress. It's also causing her dysfunction in important areas of her life. An important consideration that some people brought up was also that it could be a specific phobia. And if you scroll down to the differential diagnosis section, and there's a differential diagnosis for all of the disorders in the DSM-5, where it describes other disorders that are similar in nature and how you can parse through and figure out which one is which. So for a specific phobia, a situational type, which is also covered, which is also among the anxiety disorders, the way of differentiating that from agoraphobia is this requirement in agoraphobia, that first part, that very first symptom requirement, where the person must show fears from 2 or more agoraphobic situations. So being using public transportation, being in open spaces, being outside the home, 2 or more of those situations. If it was a specific phobia, then it might just be one of those situations. So that's how we would describe the differences between those. And you'll also see other differential diagnoses here. So great answers. Keep up the great work. Just remember that dysfunction means that there's some kind of impairment in an external aspect of real life, such as the person's job, their relationships, their marriage, their school, their ability to perform certain work duties, those kinds of things, and not just the symptoms themselves.